Time for another post-game reaction show. This time, your Auburn Tigers take down the Georgia State Panthers by the score of 100-59. We have a lot to talk about after this one with some big storylines and implications, but a major victory. Let's talk about it. The score, the stats, and of course, the storylines all coming up right now. War Eagle, everybody, and welcome back to E2C Network, where we share the Auburn experience. That Auburn experience we define as Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and Auburn family stuff. And if it's easier to say it, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So we thank you so much in joining us in what we do today on this post-game reaction show for Auburn basketball, taking down Georgia State at home, finally back home, by the score of 100-59, hitting the century mark at the very, very end of the game, which is a great way to cap off a night that was very stressful at times. And when I say stressful, you will say, what does that mean, Kyle? Well, we'll get into it and talk about it in great detail. We'd love for you to let us know who's here if you're watching live. If you can, make sure that you smash that like button, post in the chat where you're watching from. You can do this on the replay as well, no matter where you're watching. We just love to know who's here hanging out with us to be part of the discussion tonight, and certainly plenty to discuss and plenty that I know that you all want to offer opinions, thoughts on from this particular game. So let's open it up right there. The score, the stat, and the storyline. The score we've already talked about a little bit, 100-59. That would be a pretty big storyline in of itself. The stat that I'm going to bring up to you is 26 points. 26 points by but not by Janai, but by Chaney Johnson. But because that is such a big stat, that is the reason behind that being Janai Broome tonight does go down with what looks like a very serious injury, although that may not be as serious as maybe we were all feared at the time. We have no word as of right now in this stream at our current present time to know what that is. I'm sure Coach will give some updates in his press conference, but that is your major storyline tonight. So the score, the stat, and the storyline. How we do these post-game shows is really predicated upon you, the audience, and looks like we already got a great one showing up here. So again, make sure you smash that like button if you haven't. We will go through individual stats, and there's some interesting stats for a lot of individuals tonight to talk about, and then we'll go through some team stats and certainly talk throughout the night about storylines, things that you're wanting to discuss and break down a little bit more into detail. So let me talk about the major story tonight, and that is one Janai Broome, who about 2 minutes into the game gets tangled up under the basket with one of the JSU defenders and really got his arm pulled in an awkward direction and instantly reacted to that and did not seem like he was in a lot of comfort. He was in a lot of discomfort, ran straight to the locker room and was back there for quite some time. He comes out after several minutes with a hoodie on that was covering up clearly what was an ice pack or some type of compression, but most likely an ice pack. Was reevaluated at halftime. Took a while for him to come back out after half, and he came back out in street clothes and a sling. A lot of that right there brings up trepidation for Janai, the season that he was having, finally starting to be talked about as the potential player of the year, but also Auburn's season. Because frankly, when you have the player of the year on your team, that certainly changes things and makes things a little bit more interesting if you're without him. But he did look a little bit more, I will say, I want to say pleasant, but more like things had kind of calmed down with his pain and stuff like that after being evaluated and having that addressed during halftime, and seemed to be a little bit more in good spirits. So that's at least we want to acknowledge that at the very start of the game was probably going to be the biggest storyline, especially if Auburn had lost tonight, but they don't. 100 points. That's something to celebrate right there. And a night where things got a little bit crazy. So let's open it up with you guys in chat, and then they'll probably lead us into some of the individual stats tonight and see where everybody is at tonight in terms of their thought process on this game. Lots of people just stopping by to celebrate, especially the 100 mark there. Chaney Johnson, player of the game. So let's start right there. Is there anybody else that somebody wants to give player of the game to? I usually ask this throughout every stream, and sometimes we do have opportunities to give somebody or have a case for multiple players to be player of the game. You tonight probably have a case for 3 primary players, as we tend to do. But I got to think, given the context of what happened with Janai tonight and the response by Chaney Johnson, that he is the player of the game. So let's look at it. 26 points tonight for him, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 personal fouls, 3 turnovers in 30 minutes of playing time. Frankly, I think that's more than typically Janai gets in the game in terms of playing time, and it's the most tonight. So what a workhorse tonight, and to be rewarded. Had such a great start to the season and not had a bad rest of the non-conference time, but it really quieted down a little bit, especially as Janai started really asserting himself. And as Janai goes out, he steps in that great moment that we saw tonight of Janai once he was back after halftime and kind of letting things settle in with whatever pain he was dealing with, pulling Chaney aside after he's already having this great game and encourage him, talking to him privately. Just a great sign that you want to see there between for Janai, for Chaney, but camaraderie, the team, how they're all feeling. And Chaney Johnson, man, what a night for you, sir. Definitely up for player of the game, if not outright. Let's see here. That's a great point from WT. What a great win for Auburn, showing that they can win without the best player in college football. And certainly we want to talk about both sides of this. You know, no matter how you win, it's a good sign that you can respond this way. Certainly Georgia State is not a team that appears to be very formidable, probably one of the least formidable on Auburn's non-conference schedule so far based off what we've seen. Of course, you're playing Auburn, who's one of the best teams, if not the best team in the land. But the team has a great response. And frankly, we talked about this on social media tonight during our live tweets of the game and said, you know, obviously our main concern is for Janai, but this is a great opportunity for the basketball team tonight to show to the world that what happens when the player of the year on your team potentially goes down. How do you respond? And tonight, I think there's a lot of sloppiness, and I think things thrown out of whack by the fear that everybody had, and in fearful as we as fans were, imagine what his teammates and his coaches were like for Janai. But a great response for them tonight, and certainly show that they are more than just one player. Let's see here. Linda wants to give a shout out to 34 straight free throws for CBM. We're going to jinx him. All right. Did he finally miss one tonight? Let's see. Chad Baker Mazar, 11 for 11 tonight. Wow. That, honestly, folks, that should have been the stat that I opened up the show with, because that's incredible. I love me some CBM because he's good at his free throws. We'll see what's going on here. 2 games in the next 2 weeks. Hopefully, Janai will be ready for SEC play in January. Yeah, I know we're going to start looking ahead a little bit. We'll talk about that at the end of the game, but certainly we want to think about what's best for him, if he should play or not going forward. Let's see here. Love hitting the century mark. CJ31. Is this his nickname that we're going to just call him now? CJ31. Chaney Johnson. A lot of shout outs tonight and a lot of hellos, a lot of celebrations all the way around. Okay. Let's talk about some other individuals tonight. I've seen a lot of you guys giving notes, whether it was to CBM or something like that, but let's walk through that and see what's going on here. Obviously, your top scorer was Chaney Johnson, as we already gave him a shout out, and the obvious player of the game, I think. But right behind him is Chad Baker Mazara with 19 points tonight, 4 for 11 from the field. He doesn't make a 3-pointer all night with that 19 points. Let that sink in, and here's why. 11 for 11, and as so many are debating, there's a discrepancy on how many in a row it was, but 30 plus free throws in a row for Chad Baker Mazara. We preach about free throws, and this just goes to show you that it can make a big difference, not just as a team, but for you individually. If you just go up to the line and, knock down the free throw opportunities that you're given. The fact that he had 11 attempts tonight was pretty crazy as well. He also has 6 assists tonight, only 3 personal fouls, 4 rebounds, 1 turnover in 25 minutes of play. That's a very impressive stat line for him. Now, honestly, if we don't have Chaney's game tonight and his rising to the occasion in the absence of Broome, we're certainly talking about a game where Chad Baker Mazara is probably your player of the game, given that free throw thing alone. Denver Jones tonight, 17 points, is your third leading scorer, 6 for 9, 5 for 7 from the field. Don't miss how key he was at this game. You really want to at home take advantage of that, those energy plays, knocking down those 3-pointers. He also he doesn't record really any other stats tonight other than 17 points and 3 3-point range, 5 for 7 in 22 minutes of play. So a great night for him as well. The rest of the scores for you tonight, nobody else hits double digits, but everybody, and I do mean everybody outside of the people that didn't get a lot of playing time, scores tonight. Janai did score before he went out with 2 points. Miles Kelly with 6. Dylan Cardwell, I feel like he had more tonight, but only 6 points for him tonight. Tahad Pettiford with 7. JP Pegues with 3. Jakai Howard with 7. And Chris Moore with 3, and Yaheim Hudson with 4. And that is all of your scores tonight. And once again, we got our walk-ons and such into the game. So that's a great thing to see right there. Blake wants to give a shout out to Denver. His free throw percentage, I think, leads the SEC or the country, I believe. I believe you are correct, because the commentators last game are the ones that jinxed him and messed up his free throw percentage, because he was like 100% for the year. So don't let that be missed, that not only is Chad Baker-Mazara doing the easy things, or what should be the easy things, knocking down your free throws, so is Denver Jones tonight. So great point out by Blake, or Peanut, as I call him. Look, I'm always going to do it to you, Peanut. WT says, yeah, I have to take back my player of the game selection and say my favorite player. Well, you could say player of the game, but favorite player could be different. Is CBM. Free throws alone makes me love him. His playmaking has taken him a great leap this year. Great shout out for him. Devin with a cool stat as well. Shot 69% from the field in the second half. Good grief. Yeah, when you do that at home, you're going to have a lot of success, obviously. Okay, who else tonight? We have in detail mentioned Chaney. We have talked about the story with Janai. We've talked about Chad and a little bit about Denver. Who else tonight for you all that are watching live deserves a shout out, point of note, good or bad? One thing that I'm going to point out to you is what happens because of Janai. Let's just assume, for whatever reason, that he doesn't play the next game, or even the next game, and really needs some time to heal this up. What's the ripple down effect? Well, certainly that gives Dylan an opportunity to kind of showcase as the main big man down there, but it also gives guys like Chaney keep moving that chain of effect up. That means that Hudson comes in and gets to play a lot more tonight. Hudson, where are you? Such a long stat list. 4 points, 2 for 2 from the field, so 100%. He gets 3 rebounds, 3 assists for Hudson as well, distributing the ball in 17 minutes of play. You're going to get to see him a little bit more tonight, and it looked like he was pretty solid, not with the most amazing stats out there. I want to give him a little bit of a shout out tonight as someone we're probably going to be watching if Janai does have a little bit more time that he needs to heal up for all of that. The irony of CBM getting to shoot free throws for a contact technical foul. Yeah, that was a pretty wild tonight. So there's a little story tonight for you all. Obviously, there was a lot of emotions and feelings about how Janai got injured. Was there a little bit of extra that caused that injury to his arm? And I think you could feel that a little bit in the players tonight, a little bit of jostled around. People weren't as settled in the first half, but really came out with a fire. Bruce protecting his players the rest of the game, especially when CBM got just mauled down there for what would become that technical foul. They tried to make it on the TV sound, and I don't think they intentionally did this, but there was a discussion of firm nature with Coach Pearl and I forget his name, but the head coach for Georgia State. And I watched what they showed on TV. It didn't really seem that bad, but certainly the GSU coach was not happy whatsoever with all of that. And it certainly made his presence known about how he felt about that. WT says, I noticed a couple of times that GSU player in and out of bounds threw the ball into the back of an AU player. While I am sure it's legal, AU sure should look out for that loophole in their defense. Well, what does that tell you about their inbound defense? That's what players are having to resort to. And yes, that is something that is legal and something that happens quite often. So yes, you do need to keep a lookout for that. Definitely quite chippy down the stretch. And look, your player, whether it was intended for on that play or not, the little extra that caused Janai to have the injury was intentional or not, it still happened. You're still going to want to defend your players. If it continues to happen, Chad did get mauled down there. There's going to be a little bit of extra that comes out there. I should listen to Andy call the game. I do sometimes. I do. And obviously big fans of Andy Burcham here. But I do what I can to just log in sometimes to get all that synced up is a little bit of work, but certainly I love doing that when I can. Jacob giving some shout outs, and I love this. We're giving us an opportunity to talk about some players that we don't. Glad Simo and JP got to hit a 3 at the end. JP needs to get that confidence back, and hopefully that helps. He's a better player than he showed thus far. Yeah, and I've talked about this a lot, not here some on YouTube, but on TikTok, because there's a lot of people that are just rude about JP. He certainly isn't being as proficient as some people would have liked for him to be, and thus he's lost a little bit of playing time. But that happens, and if you're not hot at a certain point in the year, you're not going to get to play as much. But if he gets that going, to me, JP, what he provides is a lot of steadiness and a lot of reliability. He comes in, he's not going to be a liability, and he may become even bigger role as time goes on. But as you point out, it's nice for the players that are going to factor into the game at some point, but don't get as much playing time or many opportunities to get to show out. And Chris Moore certainly falls into that category too tonight. Devin wants to talk about out of bounds plays some more. I have noticed that when CBM is trying to throw the ball off an opposing player, he throws it like it's in a dodgeball world championship. Do you expect CBM to not do anything with the utmost amount of energy? I mean, that's just his MO, right? Okay. If you've got some more individual stats, shout outs that you'd like to bring up, please do so. Let's move into team stats tonight and talk about those. Whenever we do team stats discussion, I'm going to focus on the big three. What are they? They are free throws, turnovers, and rebounds. So let's look at those tonight, first of all. Auburn, yet again, 81 above 80%, 81% from the free throw line compared to their 65. Auburn wins that category. What was going to be challenged all night for Auburn and Georgia State, because Georgia State was leading this for quite some time, was rebounds. 34-34, they end up tying. Tie goes to the home team. So I'll put that in Auburn's win category there. Turnovers tonight, a little bit more for Auburn, a little bit sloppy play down the line. 20 for Georgia State, though. 11 for Auburn. They win that category. So technically, they win all three of those major categories in my mind, thus kind of helping you tell the tape tonight. But what's the stat that tells the tape? I like to look through these and try to find that for you tonight, if anything, and you got to look no further than bench points. Obviously, that's because of Janai not being able to finish the game and Chaney Johnson taking such a center stage. But 50 points from the bench tonight compared to 15 for Georgia State stat. That is a big-time stat that State didn't have, and is, to me, the tail of the tape in regards to stats tonight. Let's see what else. Did we end up getting? So yeah, we did answer that. Let's break down the rebounds a little bit more. So it was tied 34-34. We won the defensive rebounding category 17-24. Offensively, we lost 17-10. So certainly Georgia State had a lot of opportunities to get back into this thing. What are their second chance points? 20-18. So it's basically a push there. So they really didn't make a lot of differential there. Points in the paint, 32 for them, 52 for us. So that there also, they couldn't really make a dent in that at all. Fast break points, we win 18-5. That's another big margin there. So the rebounds, even though you tie, a lot of the other categories where maybe that takes effect and doesn't really come into play. Let's see here. Our bench wasn't too far off their team. You talking about the bench stats just being too far off from their whole team? Yeah, it's 59. I think that I got what you're saying now. So 50 points for our bench. Let's put things into perspective tonight. It's a great point by Jacob, I think, is what he's making. Georgia State tonight, 58 points. Auburn's bench, 50 points. You don't lose. That's an honest win right there, or loss, if we're just talking about the bench points alone. So great to bring that up by Jacob. Field goal percentage tonight. Auburn, 57%. Georgia State, 34%. You do that at home, you're going to win. 3-point percentage tonight is really not amazing. 36% for Auburn, 9 for 25 from the 3-point arc. They shoot even worse, 13%. everything's in Auburn's favor. Even the area where they tied defensively, on rebounds, is still doesn't really factor because there's not a differential where some of those extra opportunities that you get on offensive rebounds comes into play. We won in blocks 9-0. We won in steals 11-7. We won in assists 19-7. Once we got the lead, never lost it. So everything was in Auburn's favor tonight, which was absolutely incredible showing for what they had to deal with tonight emotionally. Let's see here. Points in the paint was crazy, Caleb says, considering Janai didn't play. And that speaks to not just the team, but that front court. What happens once Janai goes down? What do you do? Now, this is Georgia State. Keep it in perspective. But certainly a lot of these stats indicate that with Janai only playing 2 minutes in the game, that this team, this front court is capable of doing big things. So whether it's Chaney, we'll throw Chad in there as well because he plays, in a versatile manner. Hudson, you've got obviously Chris Moore that you can throw in there as well. Cardwell, certainly, that are great options in the front court. WT says AU took some bad 3-pointers tonight. I think that's reflected in their percentage, and I can see feeling that you're going to hit, but several were ill-advised with players in their faces. I think there's a tendency for Auburn at home to be a little bit more of a risk taker in some areas, and certainly I think that showed at times tonight, especially when you're wanting to kind of get a little bit of retribution for what happened tonight, whether it was intentional or not. So some of that stuff does happen, and certainly you're going to have some of those off nights. Jacob says if it wasn't for Denver and the late threes, it would have been a real bad from 3, which speaks a lot to how well we did from 2. Great perspectives as well, Jacob, to share in there. Let's see here. We are very fortunate that it was GSU that Broome wasn't able to play. A stronger team, and we would not have fared so well, potentially. Only thing that we haven't really talked about tonight, unless you guys have something that you'd like to discuss from stats, this is really just the breakdown of the score from first to second half. GSU and Auburn, 43-31 in Auburn's favor in the first half, 57-28 in Auburn's favor. Doubled their points. Doing the quick math to make sure I'm not lying there. That is correct. Doubled their points in the second half, which results in a 59-100 win, 41-point differential. I want somebody to make a stat out there and put it out on social media, and we'll give you a shout out for it. Just tag us in it so that you're doing it in reference to me asking this here. Compare all the differentials of wins, like the point differentials, and see where they're happening. How like show me the trends. Are they happening more often right now? I think they are, to be honest with you. So I would love to see that. Let's see here. GSU didn't have any depth either. They played tonight. I'm not going to really count 3 of their play. I won't count 2 of their players. So that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Really 8 to 9 players. You could probably make that case. Only 2 of their guys getting to double digits tonight. It did feel a little bit like they were overwhelmed. Maybe I would venture to say undermanned. Certainly when it comes to comparison, competing with Auburn. And we just apparently got confirmation from Bruce, according to Devin, I would assume is doing double duty here with listening to the radio, watching us. Janai will not play Saturday. So what a great opportunity. We'll talk about that in a second, but thank you for referencing that here. We have talked about individual stats. We have talked about team stats, and we have talked about storylines. I do not want to miss anything in our post-game shows from this particular game, Auburn, Georgia State, 100-59. So if there is something that we haven't discussed, haven't missed, or that we've missed about what we should discuss from this game, please post it now. What we'll round out our show with is doing a little bit of future looking ahead, certainly something in regards to what was just shared. and then we'll kind of wrap things up tonight. So before we do that, always want to remind you of what's coming up next here at E2C Network, opportunities to catch some more live streams from us. There's content all the time, so you should be subscribed or following whichever platform you're on. Tomorrow night is Auburn Family Night, our live call-in show where you can take part in the show. We hope you'll join us regardless of whether you want to call in or not. 8 p.m. Eastern time. We've been doing this since there was hardly any YouTube content out there for Auburn stuff. Please join us tomorrow night. We'll be talking about a lot of different things Auburn related. So much to talk about right now. If you enjoy these post-game shows, we got another one coming up for you this Saturday, Auburn Purdue. I will be on the road, so bear with me, but it should be going live right at the end of it. And certainly we will likely and hopefully have episode 107 live recording of the Auburn Experience podcast this Sunday at 9 Eastern time. There is a slight possibility we might have to do some changes for my travel schedule, but we will announce that as soon as we possibly can, but be looking for that as well. Always check out our links in the description if you want to help support us by supporting Alumni Hall. If you go to our link in our main link tree in our description on YouTube, we've got it posted everywhere pretty much. You can buy something for yourself or somebody for last minute Christmas stuff at Alumni Hall and if you buy through that link, you'll support us. They appreciate them for letting us be an affiliate of theirs. All righty. Let's round out our show tonight and see what we've got going on. Which show is older, the AFN or the flagship? The AFN is the oldest one, but the flagship is the Auburn Experience. Purdue's big man is also out, so it would be evenly matched. On paper, yes, you could definitely say if their big man is out, our big man is out, that might be evenly matched. But the difference is going to be what is the team like, Auburn or Purdue, with that big man out. What's the effect on Auburn's team without Janai for completely a whole game? What's the effect on Purdue? How do they rally? How do they fall apart for either side? That's going to be the biggest question with that now being confirmed that he won't play. My suspicion is you could slice this to one or two ways with the announcement that Bruce saying that Janai won't play Saturday for Purdue. One, it could be a pretty bad injury that truly does require him to not play for as long as possible. So we'll see subsequently what happens after this particular game. It could be that Bruce has looked at the situation and say, if you're feeling okay, probably you could see some minutes, but we'd rather have you completely healed up for SEC play. Not to say that that's us taking Purdue, because we're not lightly in any strategy, but Auburn has already done so well in non-conference. Why risk it? Why risk him when this team could have a chance and make its case to the college basketball world, despite that one loss at Duke? If you're able to beat Purdue and do it without Janai Broome, that shows any doubters at this point that Auburn is the best team in the land, even without the player of the year and the most likely candidate for that at this point. Unless they pull out another 7-footer out of nowhere. Thank goodness, as I called him, the spawn of the Nephilim, Zach Edey is no longer here. If I'm not mistaken, this is not the first time Brew has hurt his shoulder. What would be interesting to see, Blake, is it that shoulder or a different one? I think you are correct. I remember him wearing one of those weird, like, I don't want to call them a strap, but those things that kind of go down each side and over the top a couple of different times. So maybe this is a retweaking of an old injury, or maybe it's a new one. If it's on a different side, I cannot remember, but hopefully with a little bit of rest, it'll be fine. I would rather we took, this is WT, I would rather we took long-term and have Broome for most of the season than risk him for one game. Certainly, we agree with you as well there. And I'm beating Lake with a great perspective. Thankfully, it should be considered a home game for us since it's in Birmingham. I know Auburn fans have been really excited about that matchup for quite some time, so I expect a heavy Auburn contingency there. Remember, this is a home and home, or neutral and neutral. We'll do one up in Indiana next year, so I'm super excited about that matchup. As we round out our time together, I want to remind you of the score. 59-100, Auburn with the 41-point win. The big stat that we talked about tonight, 26 points. That comes from Chaney Johnson as He steps in the stead of our storyline. Janai Broom goes down 2 minutes into the game with a major shoulder injury that is up in question right now, but may not be super bad. We'll find out. He will be out for the next game, as we found out during our show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight, spending post-game shows with us. We're having a great crowd tonight. I hope you'll continue to join us throughout the year, and especially for this Saturday one, Auburn versus Purdue, which will be very interesting without the player of the year, Janai Broom. Thank you guys for hanging out with us and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Till I talk to you again, War Eagle.